Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to be making Salisbury steaks. I'm going to be making Salisbury steak with gravy and mashed potatoes. Anyway, before we even start, I'm going to give you a list of the basic ingredients. I'm going to be using a pound of ground beef, 1 egg, some Worcestershire sauce, maybe about a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs, maybe half of an onion really finely minced, some fresh parsley, some thyme, some salt and pepper, and maybe a little bit of minced garlic. For the gravy, I'm going to be using a bunch of chopped mushrooms, about 2 tablespoons of butter, a little bit of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of flour, 3 cups of beef broth, another dash of Worcestershire sauce, and some salt and pepper. And finally, for the mashed potatoes, I'm just going to be using 1 big potato. This big one, a big russet potato. For every potato, you basically use a clove of garlic. That's a pretty big potato, so I'm going to use 2 small cloves of garlic with that. And basically, apart from that, I'd say about ½ cup of milk or cream, and butter to add, and salt and pepper. And anyway, I'm going to start getting the ingredients chopped up and ready to start boiling the potatoes. And we can see how this all comes together soon. Okay, so now we got the potato completely peeled. It's a nice big potato. We're not going to be making a potato battery with this to see if we could light up a light bulb, nothing like that. We're going to cut this up and we are going to boil it with a couple cloves of garlic. So let me show you how that's going to work. All you got to do is just smash it like this, smash it like that, and then just cut off the disgusting end that you don't want to eat. Simple as that. Now we've got ourselves 2 cloves of garlic that we're going to throw in the boiling water with the potatoes. Now we're going to cut up the potato. Now we're going to boil it in a big pot, so we're not going to make the pieces too small. But let's basically cut in half. But remember, the smaller the pieces you make, the quicker they cook. So we're just going to make it in quarters like this, and then just little chunks like this. We'll know they're ready when they're fork tender. Put them in this pot. We're not going to add any salt. There's nothing in the pot right now. Just add the potatoes and the garlic. And let's fill it now with water. Filled with cold water, we're now going to turn on the stove and start cooking these potatoes. Okay. Put it on a high heat. And boil these until they are done. We're going to start mixing together the meatloaf. So, we're going to start getting these ingredients together. But anyway, we got ourselves less than a pound of ground beef here. Half of an onion minced really finely. We're not going to use all of it. Or we'll start with some. Because you can always put in too little, but you can't take out. We're going to use all this parsley here. This is just about a tablespoon of freshly chopped parsley. We're going to add the egg. Then we are going to take ourselves a little bit of this thyme, maybe about a good ½ teaspoon, and break it up in there. Maybe even a little bit more. We want this savory and delicious. And then, of course, freshly cracked salt. A good amount. Keep in mind this is about a pound of meat here. And instead of the normal freshly cracked black pepper, I'm using a mixture of peppercorns. White peppercorns, red, and black peppercorns. It's really flavorful. So, a good amount of pepper. I really love my pepper. Then, let's take a dash of Worcestershire. I'd say about a teaspoon. And then the breadcrumbs. Now, you really want to get your hands in there and mix this up well. So, let's start mixing this up. Okay, now that it's completely blended together, we're going to start forming patties. Now, a lot of people think that Salisbury steak and hamburgers are the same thing, but they're a little different. See, this is basically more like a meatloaf. That's why we mix it with the egg and Worcestershire and the onion and all that, and the breadcrumbs. More like a meatball or a meatloaf. But the other thing about Salisbury steak is, it's like a mock steak. We want to make it look like pieces of steak. So we're going to make oval shapes. Something like this. And I think I could get 3 out of this. So I'm going to divide this into 3 pieces and make 3 nice big steaks. And now we've got our Salisbury steak patties. So the potatoes are done boiling. It's time to take these off the heat and get started with the mashed potatoes. So we're going to strain the potatoes out and now turn off the heat. And we're going to mash these potatoes down with the garlic that's in there. So what we do now is basically pour in there the potatoes and just start breaking them with a fork. We know these are well cooked because they're fork tender and they are breaking easily. Okay, so we got the potatoes mashed up completely, even the pieces of garlic that were in there. They're completely mashed. Now we're going to put these back on the stove. And now, put it back in the same pot. The pot's been drained of all the water. This is just 1 potato. See how much mashed potatoes it's making me? That's why I didn't use 2 potatoes. That'd be like enough potatoes for like 3 nights of dinner. It's too much. I'd have to end up throwing it away. Put it on medium lowish. You know, almost completely low. Just to get these potatoes heated back through. Like so. And pretty soon we're going to be adding the cream and the butter and the salt and the pepper. This is going to be so good. You know the point of these? That you add a little bit of butter and cream first, and you keep stirring them. You keep stirring them, and then you keep adding more slowly until it just gets to the perfect, creamy, delicious, wonderful consistency. So that's why I have the pieces of butter cut up into small chunks. We're going to turn the heat up a little bit. Start mixing these potatoes around. Yeah, they're getting nice and warm. Let's add the cream. This is half a cup. It's going to seem like a lot. Like to me it seems like a lot. So I'm going to add most of it for now. And maybe half the butter and start mixing that around with the potatoes. Now we just added the rest of the cream. And I don't know if we're going to use the rest of the butter. But it's looking nice. Let's put in, we still have 2 hunks of butter left. Just get all this together until it melts before we spice it with salt and pepper. Now we're going to kick up these garlic mashed potatoes with some more of that potpourri of different peppers. The red, black and white pepper, cracked over it. Nice, good amount, nice, healthy amount. And salt, good amount of salt. And I'm even thinking we're going to add the rest of the butter. Make sure it gets a really good amount of salt because that is a lot of potato. Anyway, turn the heat all the way to low. Just keep mixing. Keep mixing. Look at the consistency. It's basically how we want them. We're going to taste it now. Anyway, these bad boys are basically done in my view. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start the gravy. And then when the gravy is getting there, like almost completely cooked, we're going to start with the Salisbury steaks. Because we're going to cook the Salisbury steaks most of the way and then finish cooking them in the gravy. So in the meantime, let's get started with the gravy. This, for now, we can have the stove on high. I'm going to put in like about a tablespoon of olive oil. And we're going to fry these mushrooms down. Now that the oil is getting nice and hot, we're going to throw in the mushrooms and hear the sizzle. Put them all in and start stirring them up. There's no need to salt and pepper it now because we're going to be doing that when we make the roux. So I'll cook these mushrooms down until they reach this point. We still have about a tablespoon of oil in there, so we're not going to go too far. We're going to add just 1 more tablespoon of butter. Now, as that's melting, I have some freshly chopped, very finely minced garlic. This is about 1 clove here. I don't want to burn it. You don't want to burn the garlic because it gives a bitter flavor. But what we're going to do now is we're going to make a roux. As the butter's melting, we're going to take our 2 tablespoons of flour and throw that in there. So, we're going to start whisking this together, making sure all the flour gets incorporated. The flour and the fat, like for example the oil and the butter, combined with the flour, getting heated up is the beginning of a roux. A roux is how you thicken sauces. And it's delicious. It's going to come out like a nice, creamy, flavorful mushroom sauce. Once it gets nice and golden brown, about 4 or 5 minutes, we cook some of the starch of the flour out. We'll be ready to add the broth. In the interest of not burning the garlic, it's been about 4 minutes. We're going to pour in maybe 1/3 of the 3 cups of beef broth. Turn the heat up on high at this point and start mixing. Just start getting this roux that we made mixed with the broth. Scraping the bottom of the pan, and when you see it come to a boil, we're going to add the rest of the broth. Then we're going to bring that to boil while stirring the whole time, and then we're just going to lower the heat to simmer and cook it until it's done. Now that this is starting to reach a boil, you can see little bubbles. We're going to add the rest of the broth, and by the way, this has thickened up already, but this is just 1/3 of the broth. Put in the rest of the broth and bring that to a boil while stirring. And then we'll just lower it all the way and simmer it the rest of the way home. Now that this is coming up to boil, now would be a good time to season it and stir it a little bit before we lower the heat. So, we're going to put in our dash of Worcestershire sauce in this too. You know, about 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon. Not too much salt because the beef broth already has salt in it. So we can always put in too little but not too much. That's what we don't want to do. And a good amount of the pepper mix. Now would be a good time to mix it and taste it to see what kind of seasonings it needs, if it needs any more. But first let's lower the heat all the way, or almost all the way, just have it on a light boil. For now, since it is pretty liquidy, it is 3 cups of broth there. We're going to taste it. So we take a taste. And it is perfect. Now my secret to a beautiful Salisbury steak is that we don't want to burn the outside like we want to burn the outside of a hamburger. We don't want it so charred like that. We just want it to have a nice golden brown color. Okay, so we've already flipped them over. Now we're just going to see if the other side is as nice as the first side. Yes. Nice and golden brown. We take these steaks out. When the sauce is basically almost done, the gravy, when it's almost to the thickness that we want it, that's when we'll throw the steaks in and finish the steaks off in the gravy. We're going to lower the heat all the way to low now and throw the steaks in there. Let these steaks finish cooking in the heat of the sauce. Oh my God, look at that. The gravy is basically now at the consistency we want it. So we're going to take some of these potatoes, like a good amount like this, even a little bit more because, you know, we're hungry. So, I'm going to have 2 of these steaks for now. So 1 steak here, 1 steak there. And now we're just going to take this and give it some gravy. Got ourselves a nice big spoon, take some of this thickened gravy, pour it on the, oh, look at that. Look at that. Pour it on the mashed potatoes. That looks so freaking good. Take a spoon of gravy for each steak, making sure to get plenty of mushrooms involved. Okay, so we are finally done cooking. Let me show you guys what I'm going to be eating today. Here it is. Look at this plate. Look how magnificent it looks. Look at this food. We're going to take ourselves a nice bite of this to show you what I'm getting at. Cut ourselves a nice piece. First, take a bite of the potatoes. Take some of the potatoes, rub it around the gravy. That's really good. And now a piece of the meat. It feels nice and tender. And look at this. Look how beautiful this is looking. Look at this. Take this and it's nice and tender and delicious. Look, we've got the two Salisbury steaks. You know, it's like a steak. It's like a fake steak, a mock steak, an imitation steak. And we got the mashed potatoes and the gravy is really, really awesome. So I'm gonna, you know, grab my bread here and get started with this meal. Thank you guys for watching and have a good one now. Take care.